And Dr. Frank Field. What?
This evening, we begin a series of reports on how gasoline bootleggers are costing us millions of dollars every year. The bottom line of this ripoff at the pumps is that you're probably not getting the gasoline you pay for, and you certainly may be ruining your car all at the same time. Correspondent Arnold Diaz reports.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Prime time in the bootleg gasoline business. The trucks are loading up at the rack. Then, under cover of night, the tankers take off along New York's highways, destined for any gas station willing to do business with the bootleggers. These pictures are of unauthorized, alleged bootleg gas deliveries. That is not a Texaco truck filling the tanks at the Texaco station. And the Power Test Company did not okay this delivery to this Power Test station. It is not Power Test gas going into the tanks in the ground. The trucks in these photos were allegedly working for bootleggers. Some even cover up the name on the side of the truck when making these deliveries. While most of the bootleg shipments of gas take place at night to avoid detection, the risk of being caught is so small that some of the unauthorized deliveries are being made in the middle of the day. Simply put, bootleg gasoline is gasoline on which none of the required taxes has been paid. That's why it can be sold to stations at a cut-rate price. Later in this report, we'll explain how the bootleggers are able to get away so easily with committing their crime. But here's how they're hurting you directly. They have flooded the New York market with so much bootlegged gas that the chances are now 2 out of 3 that when you pull up to the pump, you will not be getting the quality of gas you're paying for. What you will be getting is gas that will most likely hurt your car's engine. After documenting dozens of unauthorized gas deliveries, the attorney for Power Test says the bootleggers do anything the station owners tell them to do.
We've had instances which we have found in which they have put diesel fuel in regular gasoline, in which they have put regular unleaded into super unleaded, and they blend regular and unleaded into an unleaded tank.
The end result? You, the customer, are paying for high-octane unleaded but getting low-octane instead. Or you're paying for unleaded gas and getting harmful lead pumped into your tank.
The public is unaware of it until their car breaks down 3 months later or a week later or a month later.
And you'll be amazed at how often this is happening. The New York City Consumer Affairs Department spot checks gas stations throughout the year, the major brands and the cut-rate stations. Samples of the gas are taken from the pumps. A check is made of the octane level and to see if there is any lead in the unleaded gas. The results of the tests this year are startling. From January to October of 1984, 161 samples were taken. Of those, 115 were violations, either too low in octane or there was lead in the unleaded gas. That's a 70% violation rate, which means you are most likely not getting what you're paying for at the pump. Even the Consumer Affairs Commissioner is shocked by those findings.
If history is any indication, any barometer towards this kind of a problem, we're seen as the worst it's ever been in the history of the city.
And on Long Island, the problem is just as bad. The Environmental Protection Agency test results show that you're 10 times more likely to find lead in your unleaded gasoline on Long Island than anywhere else in the country. The damaging effect that is having on your car's engine is obvious to any mechanic.
All I know is the problem is existing, and a lot of cars are coming in here running terrible.
Because they have leaded gasoline?
Because they have leaded gasoline in the tanks.
Uh-huh.
And it's a very costly thing. When you have to start working on anything to do with emissions, it's a very expensive thing.
Ironically, what has created the booming business of bootlegged gasoline is a law that was intended to cut down on tax evasion in the gas business. Under the old law, each gas station was responsible for paying the city, state, and federal gasoline taxes. But because some stations were cheating on the tax, a new law was passed 2 years ago. The new law says gasoline wholesalers and distributors must pay the taxes. Spotting a weakness in that new law, the criminal element immediately jumped into the gas wholesale business and began making millions by selling gasoline without paying the taxes. These new distributors, known as bootleggers, found it easy to get away with. They do it by setting up what's known as a daisy chain. Here's how it works. Company A buys millions of gallons of gasoline from a barge or pipeline. A series of paper transactions then follows, shifting ownership of the gas from one wholesaler to another along the daisy chain. The new law says any one of the wholesalers can take the responsibility for paying the taxes within 90 days. In this case, it's Company C that marks the documents taxes paid. The gas can then be transferred some more and be legally sold at a gas station. The problem is that the 90 days pass and Company C does not pay the taxes as promised. And not much can be done about that because Company C usually exists only on paper, a post office box or phone number that can't be traced. The state tax commissioner admits it's hard for his auditors to even trace which company is the bad guy because of the enormous paper trail created by the daisy chain.
You can have one distributor selling to another on a chain that might be 30 transactions long, and somewhere along the way, someone, a tax cheat, stamps the document tax paid and says, try to find me.
And not many of the bootleggers are being found. They are making millions by not paying the 30 cents a gallon in gas taxes. And it's no coincidence that the recent emergence of the bootleggers has been accompanied by a dramatic increase in the amount of bad gas at the pumps.
Bootleggers are the single most significant reason, I believe, for the problems that we're seeing in the pumps today.
And it's not just your car's engine that's being hurt. Tomorrow we'll show you how the bootleggers are stealing $200 million a year from all of us while driving the honest gas dealers and distributors out of business, and why law enforcement is standing by almost totally powerless to do anything but watch it happen.
Now, there's really no way to know which stations are buying bootleg gas, but if your car's engine knocks or pings after you fill up, or if you're having trouble with your car's emission system, chances are you're unknowingly buying bootleg gas. So while it's nice to save a few pennies at the pump, if the price seems too good to be true, you may be putting bootleg gas in your tank. Rollin.
The all-new Let's Make a Deal, weekdays at 9.
Channel 2 News at 6 with Jim Jensen, Rollins Smith, Warner Wolf on sports, and Dr. Frank Field with weather.
This evening, we conclude our investigation of a multi-million-dollar gasoline bootlegging scam in our area. Last night, it was reported how this ripoff at the pump can destroy your car. This evening, correspondent Arnold Diaz reports the gas ripoff hurts all, whether you own cars or not.
Most suspected bootleggers deliver their gas at night. Yesterday, we told you how leaded gas is being mixed with unleaded, low octane with high octane. It's being sold to major brand and off-brand stations at a cut-rate price. You see, the suspected bootleggers don't pay the gasoline taxes they're supposed to. That's costing all New York taxpayers a staggering amount of money each year.
We've cited cases that add up to over $90 million, and the industry feels it's a problem that it might amount to over $200 million a year.
Think of what could be done with that $200 million a year the bootleggers are robbing from the taxpayers. That's enough money to hire 2,000 more police officers and 3,000 new teachers, and still have enough money left to renovate 2,000 apartments to house the homeless. The gasoline bootleggers are taking a big bite out of our economy. In just the past 2 years, the bootleggers have moved in on the gasoline business in a big way. Estimates are that anywhere from 25 to 50% of the gasoline sold in New York is coming from bootleggers. That means that those trying to do business honestly are finding it difficult, if not impossible, to compete with the bootleggers.
A lot of people want to just pack it in and just leave the business. We cannot compete against bootleg gasoline. You were talking 18 to 20 cents a gallon, which is too much.
Richie Doyle followed his father into the gas station business in Bethpage, Long Island. 35 years in the business, and he's never seen it this bad. How can he compete, he asked, with stations around him selling gas for less than $1 a gallon? He shows proof that his cost to buy from Mobil is $1.10 a gallon for regular. Richie says he knows how the stations selling cheap are doing it. He could be doing it himself.
I constantly get cards in the mail from different places that they can sell me gasoline for X amount of dollars or well, let's say so much per gallon.
Richie showed us a card he just received from a wholesaler called Pike Petroleum. They offered to sell him regular gas for 91.9 cents a gallon, almost 20 cents cheaper than his price from Mobil. How is that possible? The date the postcard was mailed, the price the wholesalers were paying without taxes was listed in the paper as 72 cents a gallon for regular. Add to that 9 cents federal excise tax, 8 cents state excise tax, 6 cents sales tax, 2 cents gross receipts tax, and 3 cents handling and trucking, and that comes to $1 a gallon without any profit built in. So how can some wholesalers be offering to sell to stations for a total price of less than 92 cents a gallon? The only way they can do it, say state officials, is if someone is cheating on the taxes. Pike Petroleum claims they were told the taxes were paid when they bought the gas. Richie Doyle still refuses to buy.
I have no intention of losing my business by selling an unbranded gasoline. So therefore, I have to lower my price in order to be competitive.
Richie says he is now selling some of his gas for less than he pays for it, just to keep his customers from going elsewhere. Fortunately, he's got a good garage business to make up for the lost revenue from gas. Also victims of the bootleggers are the legitimate gasoline wholesalers and distributors like Whaleco.
We've noticed on our gasoline business a drop of about 50%. We have a big problem with trying to compete with people who are not paying taxes on the gasoline.
What makes bootlegging so attractive is the combination of easy money and very little risk. Almost anybody with a tanker truck and $3,000 to buy a load of gas can get into the business. And the laws are so ineffective that they're almost an open invitation to bootleg. Officials agree the most obvious problem with the law is the fact that bootlegging gasoline is only a misdemeanor.
Kind of tough to imagine that, isn't it? That you can steal $100 million in gasoline tax, for example, and get away with less than a petty thief.
A second major problem with the law is that even if they're caught, the officers of gasoline distributors are not personally liable for the taxes their company owes.
For example, we can find a company that owes us tax, and there may be no assets left in that company once they find we're coming. They can sell off everything, and our law leaves a loophole where we can't hold the officers who might have siphoned off all that money into their personal accounts personally liable.
And currently, there is no penalty for retailers such as gas station owners who buy the gasoline from the bootleggers. It's no wonder the bootleg gasoline business is flourishing. The law is so full of loopholes, there's little chance of being caught. And the few that are caught don't face much of a penalty. It's a major problem that's getting worse. The bootleg gas is damaging our cars. It's driving honest gas station owners and distributors out of business. And all New Yorkers are being robbed of $200 million a year in unpaid taxes.
And that's why we're calling for legislative action to start covering some of these loopholes in terms of the penalties we have right now that let people virtually legally steal money from the state.
State officials say they have no proof, but they strongly suspect that gas bootlegging is being controlled by organized crime. State lawmakers are now under pressure to close the gaping loopholes in the law. After all, it was the legislature that 2 years ago opened the door to bootlegging when it changed the system of collecting gas taxes, a move that has backfired in their faces and ours. Roland.
Thank you.